Greetings and welcome back to my channel. My name is Paula. Today's subject is something that I get a lot of questions about, because not only am I a paranormal investigator, I'm also a medium, psychic medium. So I get a lot of questions about why do my loved ones not come around? Why can't I communicate with them? What should I look for? You know, etc., etc., etc. And we all need the comfort. You know, if you've lost a loved one, be it, you know, a parent, a sibling, a spouse, a child, even a pet that you're especially attached and bonded to, we want to still have that bond, okay? And you do. I was with both my father and my oldest sister when they passed away. It's a blessing in hindsight, and it's very hard to go through at the time. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in our grief that we don't notice the signs from our loved ones when they do come around. Think about your loved ones. What would they typically do? What were some of the things about your loved one that stands out in your mind? For me, my dad was a smoker, and you always heard the click of his Zippo, and you smelled Salem cigarettes. My mother was, you know, a great cook, and she loved, like cardinals and blue jays, she loved the birds. She loved the birds. And she always wore white shoulder Chantilly or Shalimar perfume. So if I ever smell one of those three scents, even though I wear them myself, if I smell one and I'm not the one wearing it, and all of a sudden I smell Chantilly perfume, I know my mom's there. If I hear the click of a Zippo and smell Salem cigarettes, I know my dad's around. If I find my dad leaves me dimes, my mother leaves me nickels and pennies, and my sister leaves me quarters. And there's a story behind that, because I joked, you know, because we were always finding pennies, nickels, and dimes like right by our beds for no reason. Stuff wasn't there, you know, when the previous night we hadn't got up and jingled a pocketbook around in our room or anything like that. And I said, well, Sandy, you know, since she was 16 years older than me, I said, if you die before I do, can't you do better than a daggone dime or pennies and nickels? I said, you know, do something better than that. So right after she passed, I found a quarter right by my bed. And I looked up and I said, gee, Sandy, I was talking about paper. Can't you at least leave me a damn dollar bill? And it was so funny when I went to go put my pants on to go to work, my uniform pants to go to work, I stuck my hand in there. And there was a $5 bill in that pair of pants. Okay. There's some neat stuff happening back there with my television. I think I'll just leave that in the edit. And I know that they were literally a brand new pair of uniform pants that I had just gotten, still had the tags on them, and had never worn them. and it had a $5 bill in a pocket. Those are undeniable signs. Okay, you finding a random penny, like going to the bus stop or something like that, that's probably not something from your loved one. Okay, there's what is called a bridge. Okay, you have to be able to stop and think, okay, what would make this connected to my loved one? Okay, if it's just a random, coin or something at the bus stop, it probably fell out of somebody's pocket. But if I find a bird feather on my stove, and there is no way that a bird could get up in the hood and the vent to my stove hood, because there are cages on the outside of the vents so that no birdies can get inside, how in the heck did a feather from a bird end up on the top of my stove, where some of my most fond memories of my mother are cooking with her? My first birthday after the loss of my sister, her birthday was 7 days before mine. My parents' anniversary was the day before my birthday, and then there was my birthday. And my better half and I went to bed, and he asked me, he's like, so do you think the family's going to come by tonight? And I said, well, since tomorrow morning's my birthday, I said, probably. I said, either tonight or, tomorrow night, one of the two. They'll probably come by and say hello. The next morning we get up. He has to go to work. And we get up at 4 o'clock in the morning so that he can be at roll call by 6 a.m. And on my side of the bed, in a straight line, was a quarter, a nickel, and a dime. And that was from my mom, my dad, and my sister. It was not there the night before. There was no plausible explanation for that. And I said, honey, come here and look at this. And he looked and he's like, well, where in the hell did that come from? And I just smiled, and he's like, I thought you told your sister to leave paper from now on. And we had a big laugh about it. But there was no plausible answer for a quarter, a nickel, and a dime to appear on my side of the bed on the day of my birthday. It has happened in the 2 years. She passed in 2016. It has happened on my birthday in the years since. So you have to be able to make that bridge. And then there are certain things that show up. For instance, my mother loved cardinals. And this morning I was looking out my kitchen window, and a male and female cardinal flew in, started singing to me, and I said, good morning, Mom and Dad. And they sang a little more, and I said, well, I got to get to my chores, and then they flew off. So, some people would say that's just a random thing, but because my mother and my father love cardinals, they love, bluebirds, blue jays, and they always made the effort to teach us about the different species of birds and stuff. So once you make that bridge, and you have like an aha moment, okay? There are 5 what I call like basic rules of messages from the other side. The first rule is there is no rule about the signs that you get from spirit. It can be just about anything that you can think of. Like I said, it can be a smell, it can be a sound. You know, the smell of my mother's perfume, the smell of my dad's cigarettes, the click of a Zippo lighter, things of that nature. Signs from your loved ones usually come when you're not looking for them, okay, or not expecting them, or they know when the right time is to make the connection. It's not up to us to demand or to, you know, ask them to communicate with us. They know that we need time to mourn and process. And so if you don't properly kind of mourn, or you stay bound to your grief for a really long period of time, no one ever heals from a loss of a dear loved one, okay? Think of it this way. Your loved ones know that you are grieving. So if they keep coming around, that's just going to extend the heartache, okay? So unless you're able to process the grief and you are out of the active grieving process, the chances of your loved ones communicating directly with you are kind of slim, because they know that you're still desperate in your grief process. You can also unintentionally keep family members from being able to move on because of your grief. You keep them tethered and they can't transition to the afterlife because your grief is so strong that you keep them tethered here and they can't move on. They're like in a state, I don't want to call it limbo and I don't want to call it purgatory, but they can't transition to the afterlife and go through their processes that they need to go through back in the pool of souls so that they can be reborn. Okay. So keep that in mind. Now, if you do receive what you think is a sign, but if you have doubt about it, then that's probably a good sign that it wasn't your loved one. I can randomly find a dollar bill out on the street somewhere, and I know it's because it's fallen out of somebody's pocket. But if I find a quarter, a nickel, and a dime lined up in a straight line next to my side of the bed every morning when I wake up on the day of my birthday, that's more than coincidence, okay? So another thing, signs usually come in threes, okay? And it can be a single sign, it can be in threes, it can be, you know, more than that. If it comes in like a repetitive pattern, like on my birthday, the coins on my birthday, you have to be able to kind of, how can I say it? Put the pieces of the puzzle together, okay? And then don't be afraid to ask for clarity, okay? It's like, you know, Mom, if this is you, can you come back and give me another sign. Just confirm for me that you're here. Don't demand, but say, can you please, I'm not sure. Can you, let me know what's going on? Clarify for me because I'm unsure. 9 times out of 10, they'll give you another sign, if that was, in fact, a sign from them. So, you have to also be open to the thought of receiving signs and to be, I'm going to call, because I come from public safety, to be situationally aware of what's going on. So one thing you can do is to meditate, to just take a minute, take 5 minutes, even if it's locking yourself in the bathroom, taking a hot bath, having a moment for yourself, and just sit there and breathe and imagine, divine white light surrounding you and protecting you, saying a prayer, saying an affirmation, saying, Mom, I love you, I miss you, and, I am open if you want to give me a sign or communicate with me. Whenever you're ready, I'm open to listen. Another thing that we need to do is to discard, I'm going to say, like preconceived notions of what you think they should be telling you or how you think they should be communicating with you, because that's not the case. Often when I am, for instance, I was working on a missing child's case. What opened the door for this young girl to come through was the click of my dad's Zippo lighter and the smell of Salem cigarettes, because when I'm going about my day, my psychic shield and my armor is up. Otherwise, I would lose my ever-loving mind with spirit trying to speak to me all the time. I have to flip that switch off and be closed off, or I will literally lose my mind from all the chatter that goes on. So that was the sign that I needed to open and be willing to receive messages from this young girl. And we were spot on. My friend Alex and I were spot on in the manner of her death and the location of her body. But in order for me to, receive the messages that I needed to receive to help this young girl's body be found, my dad had to give me the kick to say, listen, girl, you need to open up because somebody here needs your help. So don't look at a book. Don't listen to everything that I have to say and take it as gospel, okay? You can communicate with your loved ones at any time. You can say, you know what? I love you. I really miss you. I remember XYZ that we used to do at Christmas. Hey, I wanted to tell you happy birthday. I remember, blah, blah, blah. Simple as that. Simple as that. And a lot of times you'll get a sign back, okay? The most common ways that spirit communicate with you is by smells. and fragrances. So if you had, you know, like I said, my mother, Shalimar, Chantilly, and White Shoulders. Those are the three. My dad, it's Old Spice aftershave, Salem cigarettes, and a click of a Zippo. My sister is a picture of an iris will pop in my head. That was her favorite flower. And I smell Chanel No. 5 or Oscar de la Renta perfume. There you go. So you can also, especially like when you're drifting off to sleep, feel like somebody caressing your hair or touching you, or being sitting here and have somebody touch you, getting, you know, a cold feeling and then almost like a really gentle caress on your skin. That can be your loved one. And you can almost always, you know when they are present, because it's almost like your heart sings. That's the only way that I can kind of explain it. It's like your soul recognizes that their soul has come back to visit you. And while you may not be able to physically see them, your soul senses them. Okay? So if you feel like they're there, they're probably there. And don't get freaked out about it. They're your loved ones. They're not going to do anything bad to you. Another thing that can be very reminiscent is songs and music. With my mom and dad, there were a couple of Patsy Cline songs and one Nat King Cole song. And it just so happened, like one night I was scrolling through Twitter and I saw somebody talking about Patsy Cline. And somebody in the thread said, "Oh, I love the song XYZ." And it's like, for that to come out this day and age, out of the blue, have a conversation about Patsy Cline, and I commented, and I was like, you know, that was one of my parents' songs. The other one was Walking My Baby Back Home by Nat King Cole. And it's like, I knew that I was having a really bad day. I was not feeling well. I had had a migraine for about 5 days straight. And I knew that that Twitter feed came up because my parents were concerned about me. Simple as that. And then it was like, it put a smile on my face. I played my Patsy and my Nat King Cole and sat there with a daggone smile on my face. So you can also see, like, catch a glimpse of a shadow. And it's not like, you know, a horror movie or anything. You don't feel threatened by it. I will never forget that the first time that I ever saw a spirit was when I want to say like 4 years old or so. I was a little scut, and my sister was in nursing school. She graduated from nursing school in 1969. So, and I was I was 4, I'm pretty sure I was 4. And we were at my grandmother's farm. My granddad passed away the year before I was born. So I never knew my dad's dad and my mother's father passed away when I was 1. So I do not remember either one of my grandparents, my granddads. My grandmothers, yes, but not my grandfathers. And I saw this man at the top of the stairs. He had a, like a fedora hat on. He had a big ass chewing tobacco. And, he was a stocky kind of build, and he was grinning from ear to ear. And I said, Zazie, who's that man? And she looked up and she says, that's Pa Woody. That's your granddaddy. So, and, my sister was the first one that saw my granddad's spirit the day that he died. She knew that he was gone before my father got the phone call that he had passed away at the VA hospital. And my dad was actually getting ready to leave to go to the VA hospital to go and visit him. And he passed away before my dad could get there. And my sister saw our granddad appear at our house before my parents knew that he was gone, before they had gotten the call from the hospital that he was gone. So a shadow, a shape, an appearance, something like that, it can definitely be a sign. Another thing is like shapes or clouds. And I call these kind of like, if you see a certain shape of something that would mean something to that particular loved one, the chances are that it's a pretty good sign. Okay, it's literally a sign from above. So that's why I say you've got to be, situationally aware. You can also see reflections or visions in mirrors. Mirrors are almost like portals to the other side. And I will tell you, since I am a practicing witch, one of the methods of divination that I do is scrying with a mirror. Scrying with flame, scrying with mirror. So if you see visions in a mirror or see visions in a flame, there you go. Another way that your loved ones commonly communicate with you are through your thoughts and dreams. So let's say a thought pops in your head, or a phrase that a loved one used to say just all of a sudden comes out of your mouth. That can be them giving you a message. There are also times when you have dreams that are so vivid and your loved ones are there and they're issuing a message to you, a warning or something. I've had several of these over the years that have ended up being warnings from my parents, warnings from my sister, and it's come through either dreams or something would pop into my head. So, something like that. It'd be a thought that wasn't really, it just popped in out of your head for no reason. And Rocky is saying hello again. There you go. He's always got a photo bomb when I'm filming. So another thing is your pets seeing something. What? Yes, I love you. I love you. I love you. Especially dogs and cats. If you see them all of a sudden focus up in a corner, or like focus on, a loved one's picture that you might have, and they are a very good indicator, and they're very good protectors. You can also have pets that have passed on come back and visit you. There have been several investigations where I have caught meowing as an EVP, seen a dog's tail wagging in the video when we went to review it. I've had live streams where people have said, Paula, there's a, looks like a dog by the door there. And it was something that was trying to get in. He was my familiar. I lost him to cancer several years ago. Think about, 6 years ago now. And he still comes around. Whenever I do a ritual, I call him in. He's extra protection. Sydney was my familiar for many, many years. Not all familiars are cats. Mine was a dog. It can be, any kind of animal can be your familiar. And, my 3 dogs now watch over me. And they are some of the best indicators that I have. Sorry about that. That I have, that spirit is around. And if they growl, I know it's a negative spirit. They're accustomed to the ones that are supposed to be here. And if they start doing, especially my pit bull, he is the most gentle, biggest, goofiest dog in the face of the earth. He is afraid of his own shadow. He is the biggest chicken there is. And when he growls, it is completely out of character for him, because he is literally a 70-pound lap dog. He might knock you down and lick you to death. That would be the only thing that he would ever do to you. And if he growls and he gets a certain timbre to his growl, I know that something negative is coming in. If he just gives a little, it's like, hello, Granddad, or whoever that's coming to visit that's allowed to. Rainbows. Rainbows, if they are unexpected, and especially if a rainbow meant something really profound to the person that passed on, and you see one where you wouldn't normally think of one developing, like the conditions wouldn't normally be right for a rainbow to naturally appear, that's probably a sign from a loved one. Butterflies. I remember when I was my sister's executrix of her estate. I had to get everything ready to try and sell the house, clean out the garage, try and retrieve family artifacts and stuff like that. And I was in her garage, and I just was having a moment, and I was on the verge of tears at the enormity of everything that I was having to go through and having to deal with by myself, just me and my better half. I was still working full time. My better half was on shift work. Thank goodness I was, in a position where I was on day work, but he was only able to help me every other weekend, because every other weekend he had to work. And when he was off during the week, I had to work. So I was making numerous trips back and forth to where my sister lived. It was 2 hours one way on a good day. So I was just so overwhelmed. And my sister had told me, we had talked about her passing and everything, because she had me be her medical advocate, because she knew that her kids could not handle making a decision like having her removed from life support. And she depended on me. So we had numerous discussions about what needed to happen and everything else. And I was just on the verge of tears. And all of a sudden, 3 white butterflies started circling around my head. And it was my mom, my dad, and my sister. Because they flew into the garage and started circling my head. And when I calmed down and I'd quit, I wasn't on the verge of tears anymore, I said, thank you all. I needed that. I needed to know that you were here with me. And whenever I am really, really down and needing family, it's either a butterfly, being visited by a male and a female cardinal, or feathers, or the money. Another thing, a feather is in general a sign of encouragement. It's kind of telling you to hang in there. And butterflies are usually like indicative of transformation and moving to a different phase. And they reminded me that no matter what I was going through, I always had the strength of the way that I was brought up, the lessons that my, parents and family taught me. I always had that to rely on. They always come at a time, and especially if I'm really having a hard time with PTSD. That is when the signs really come fast and furious. The dreams come fast and furious. And they're there trying to help me process and get through things. And it tells me, it reminds me that they're not really gone. They're around me all the time, right? Another thing is if you all of a sudden, especially like when I'm working magic and I have candles on my altar, and I always call my ancestors, and I call my mom, my dad, and my sister, and my grandmother and grandfathers, my ancestors to the circle. Without fail, the white candle altar on my altar that I use for like my center candle will flame up, and that's a sign that they're there. Or if I'm doing candle magic and I'm invoking the elements, and each candle represents one of the elements, they will flicker and flare up when the element comes, or when the god and the goddess come. So, those are my signs that the divine, my ancestors, the elements are there with me. They're providing me energy. They're providing me protection. They're surrounding me with their love and their light. Okay. Another thing that happens quite often is dragonflies. And again, dragonflies are not bad omens. Okay. They're not. They represent transformation, but they also, because they flitter around so much, it's a sign that you need to slow down, to take a breath and have a me moment. And it's telling you, that, hey, we're here with you. Just settle down. It's good. You need to stop. Really look at a situation. We'll help you through it. We'll help you reason through things. Another thing is the presence of hummingbirds. And, in Wicca, you know, they represent like strength, joy of life, dedication, boldness. But if you ever have had occasion for a hummingbird to fly in your house and then fly back out, or fly right up to you, stop and hover a little bit and fly off, or like, you know, with the butterfly, fly, you know, into the garage and then back out, that is a sign from a loved one. And it's just them checking on you to make sure you're okay. Don't take a dragonfly as a bad omen, because they're really not a bad omen at all. There can also be things with numbers. And for instance, my father passed away at 2:13 a.m. In February, and I'm not going to say the date. To this day, over 25 years later, I wake up at 2:13 a.m., which is when my dad passed away. The thing is my sister, my surviving sister, also wakes up at the time of my father's death, except she lives in the mountain time zone. So she wakes up at 12:13 a.m. instead of 2:13 a.m. And until my eldest sister passed away, every year on the anniversary, she would wake up at 2:13 a.m. So numbers like that, you know, if you happen to glance up, like every time I just, you know, glance and I see 2:13 on a clock, it makes me smile, and it makes me think of my dad. Another thing is pictures. A friend of mine had a row house in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and he was a Civil War reenactor. He was also one of the certified guides for the National Park Service in Gettysburg. We have a lot of like military art prints, memorabilia, and things like that. His house in Gettysburg was actually used as a field hospital, and in the attic you saw where soldiers had carved their initials, the date, and everything, like in the beams upstairs of his attic. And he had an attic ghost, he had a main floor ghost, he had an upstairs ghost, and he had a basement ghost. The basement ghost and the main level ghost were Union soldiers, and the two upstairs and in the attic were Confederate. So during the night, every picture of Robert E. Lee or of the Confederacy would go crooked. Tommy would straighten them up, and then every day during the day, every picture that had Ulysses Grant or portrayed someone from the Union, those pictures would go crooked during the day. And it was literally a give and take and a battle every single night. There was not a night that went by or a day that went by that those pictures didn't go crooked. And the entire time he lived there. He lived there for about 5 years, and he ended up moving back to New York. But the entire time that he lived there, they were still literally fighting the battle of the pictures. Just think of things like that. You know, those are definite signs. Other signs are electrical items behaving differently. You saw my TV do its own thing back here. That TV was off when I sat down, and it came on, and it went on to like the Roku page, because that was the last thing that I had watched. I had went through my Roku to watch something on YouTube, and I I took a break in between filming, went upstairs to do a few things, and my television up there came on too. The day that I am filming this is the anniversary of my father's death. So there you have that. I've even had friends who have gotten phone messages from loved ones after they've died. I have had clocks stop. I had one clock stop at 2:13 a.m., which is the time that my dad died. There will be a paranormal story time coming about my father's watch, because that one figures very heavily into some things. So those are some of the signs that, you know, especially if your loved ones come to you and come to you in your sleep. It's not that you're connecting with you while you're actively dreaming. It's the state right before you go into REM sleep or when you're coming out of REM sleep, okay? Not when you're actively in REM sleep, deep sleep. They're not coming to you in dreams. They're actually coming to you when your subconscious has taken over and your conscious mind has let go and your subconscious is in charge. So that's when you get your messages. You think and process them like a dream, but you're not really in a dream state, okay? So if you receive a connection, it's going to be clear. You're going to know without a doubt who's there and what the message is. You're going to know, because on a soul-to-soul level, they'll make sure that you know. So don't just take everything, you know, oh, they're not communicating. Take notice, okay? Because they may be communicating with you and you haven't taken the time to really notice the signs that they're there speaking with you. The messages that you receive are usually for what I call your higher good. It can be a warning. It can be encouragement. It can be they're there because you're ill and, you know, they're wanting to be there taking care of you. It can be any number of things, okay? So the biggest thing that the biggest advice that I can give you is to learn how to meditate, to learn how to bathe yourself in divine protective light, and to still your mind so that you can hear the messages. And it can be, you know, a picture flashing into your brain. It can be, you know, hearing a voice, having someone touch your hair, any of the other things that I've just explained. It can be any of those for a sign, okay? So with that, my friends, that's it for this video on connecting, trying to receive signs from your loved ones. So with that, my friends, until we meet again, be well and walk in love and light.